And I want to encourage some people today, even if you find yourself still waiting in a season, remember, God wears a different watch than you, and I've learned to thank him for it. I've learned to thank God for his watch and not mine. That he tells time much different than me. But I'm also grateful in the midst of that he loves you and I enough to not allow us to stay where we're at. Because who you are becoming is vital. And I've just made a decision, man, I'm going to trust God in the process.
Embrace the process, not resent it. Not feel betrayed or denied because it didn't happen as quick as the person next to you, because you are not comparing yourself with the person next to you. That is not the goal, to be like the person next to you. You are not running against them. You're running against the hope of your calling and what God wants to do in your life and what he has to take you through to produce what he is trying to produce in your life. And that means you have to listen at what he's saying. Even when he's talking about waiting while you're talking about winning, you have to respect the process, because if you do, when the process is over, you will last longer as wine than you would have as a grape.
The more you understand that God is in the business of the journey with you. I mean, he makes and he keeps promises about the destination, but he is much more focused on the journey. And he knows there's gonna be ups and he knows there's gonna be downs. He just wants to walk it with you.
And sometimes there are painful days of patience. The hardest thing in the world is waiting on God. All you have is the promise of God. I will get you there, like I said. And you take the day that God gave you. Go day by day.
Can God still work miracles in people's lives? Yes, I genuinely believe so. I just also know that the way God typically brings about change, especially change to your character, the way he brings that change is through diligence over time.
And I want to help some people here today, because you're praying in your life for an immediate miracle. And what I've learned about God is many times God doesn't move immediately, but he moves incrementally in our lives. So we want something to happen in a day, and God's going, no. I'm gonna make it happen daily in your life, because I'm not about you just building success, I'm about you building your character. I'm not about where you're going, I'm about who you're becoming.
There's not a single thing, if you are a follower of Jesus, that God is not using to shape and mold you to be more like Jesus.
God wants to use trials to mature us. God wants to see growth happen. And by the way, growth is a choice. And you and I on the daily are gonna make decisions whether we're gonna grow or not. And I realize not a lot of us like the journey of the process. We just wanna get to the destination. But I would encourage you, if you wanna help speed up whatever season you might be in, it's embracing the process. There's a lot of people that want to get promoted more than they wanna be prepared.
Here's the problem I've learned with progress is that we get frustrated with progress because progress isn't perfection. And so many of us will look at our life and we're like, that's not the perfect picture, so it's not a miracle. And God's like, no. A lot of us, we're waiting for perfection in our life, thinking that the miracle isn't done until perfection. And can I encourage somebody today that if you aren't perfect, that's okay, because you will never be perfect until you get to heaven. So if you're waiting for perfection here on this earth, you're gonna be waiting a long time. So why don't you start celebrating the progress of what God is doing? Why don't you start thanking him for you are who you used to be in your life. Like God is moving and working. Like you're better than you were a year ago. Like you're better than you were 5 years ago.
You see, when you go through this process, it's increasing something in your life, but we can't always see that. The human side of us doesn't like waiting. This idea of waiting, passage of time where you have unknowns and you don't have definition, you don't have clarity, and you don't have the punctuation on the end of a sentence. And there's a dimension of us as humans that really struggles with this. But that struggle, if leveraged by the Spirit of God, actually grows us strong. There is a great blessing and a benefit that comes out of waiting when we allow the Spirit of God to take those seasons and utilize them. And you're willing to walk through it all the way to the end. There is such a magnificent beauty that comes out when you allow God to do it His way in His time.
But Jesus doesn't ask for our understanding of His ways and His timing. He just asks us for our trust.
He will come through for you. He will not fail you. Our God is true to His word. Our waiting is not in vain. You will never regret the waiting.
Your waiting is not futile. Be assured, friend, even in the midst of your waiting now, God is purposefully at work. And it will always move to a testimony about what this good and gracious and sovereign God has done in the midst of your waiting.
Waiting on God strengthens us like nothing else. When you're waiting, you're not doing nothing. You're doing the most important